Hello everyone, so I will be doing a book haul. This is from a couple of months. I went to 2 used bookstores and then I went to Barnes & Noble, so this wasn't all at once. So let's get started. The first 2 books are Pet Sematary and The Shining by Stephen King. Pet Sematary is a horror novel about the Creed family who just moved from Chicago to a small town in Maine. They befriend an elderly man, and this man takes them on a walk in the woods where they come across a pet cemetery. This is when he says that the pets buried in there come back to life, but they return different. When I was younger, I saw this movie. I don't really remember every detail of it. I know that it deals with a lot of death, and I want to read more horror type books in the month of October. The Shining is also a horror type novel. I'm sure lots of you know what The Shining is about, but it's about Jack, who gets a new job at the Overlook Hotel, where he is the off-season caretaker. And he wants to use this time to reconnect with his family and do some more writing. But the more he stays there, the more sinister it begins to feel. I wanted to read this book for so long. I've watched the movie, but I hear the book is so much better and it goes into so much more detail, and I'm excited. The next book is Garden of Shadows by V.C. Andrews. This is the prequel to the Dollenganger series. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If you don't know what that series is, it's the series of Flowers in the Attic. If you are not familiar with that, it is the Flowers in the Attic series, which is about Dollenganger's children are locked in the attic by their mother and their mean grandmother Olivia. And in this one, it's the prequel, so we follow the life of Olivia. I haven't read Flowers in the Attic, but again, I saw the movie and I've wanted to for so long. And I think this will be interesting just to know the life of the grandmother and how she became the person she was in Flowers in the Attic. The next one is Penelope by Marilyn Kay. This is based off the movie. It is about Penelope, who is born in a wealthy family, but the only problem is that she was born into a cursed family, and this made her born with a pig nose, and all her life she's been locked away at home because they're too embarrassed for people to see her pig nose, and her family is determined to find her husband because they think that will break the curse. And one day she just kind of gets fed up with this and runs away and is determined to live her life in her own way. I loved this movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. So when I saw this, I picked it up immediately because I'm sure I will love this too. Life Sentences by Laura Lipman. This is a mystery crime novel. This is about fictional author Cassandra Fallows, and she believes that she has found her next bestseller. And it is about when she was a kid, one of her close friends is accused of an unspeakable crime, and she goes away from prison because she just does not speak about it. Cassandra kind of goes and delves into her old friend's dark secrets, and this makes her unearth some of her own. I'm always looking for a good mystery crime novel, and this sounded good, so I picked it up. The next one is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. This is about an elderly man called Ove, and everyone thinks he's grumpy, and he thinks he's surrounded by idiots. He keeps to himself until one day a young couple moves next door to him. This isn't a book I would normally pick for myself, but I heard great things about it, and so I'm trying to always expand what I read. The next book I got is A Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan. This is the 3rd book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I found this for $2. A couple months back I found the 2nd book from the series for $2. And all I need is the 1st book to be able to start reading this series. And so far I've liked all the things that I read by Rick Riordan, so I can't wait to find the 1st book. The next book I was so excited to find for $2, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This is a young adult historical fiction mystery novel. This is about Audrey Rose Wadsworth, who is secretly working with her uncle in forensic medicine. When her work on a string of murder victims drags her into the investigation of a serial killer, it starts to hit home. I already read this book and I loved it. Unfortunately, I got it as a library book, and so I never got to have a physical copy of it until now. I didn't want to buy it even though I loved it, because I always feel guilty buying books that I already read, because then I can buy books that I haven't read. And so when I found this for $2, I immediately grabbed it. The next book I got is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This is a mystery crime novel about a detective who is traveling on the Orient Express, and a man is found dead with multiple stab wounds, with 13 passengers on board, each carrying their own secret, are all suspects. I've heard great things about this book. It sounds really good. I've read many Agatha Christie books, and I liked each one. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is a science fiction novel. This is about a boy genius named Andrew Enders Wiggins, who is that way because of a genetic experiment, and he is mankind's only hope in destroying an alien race who is determined to destroy all human life. I love science fiction. This sounds amazing, and I heard great things. That is why I picked this up. The next book I was also really excited to find real cheap, because I've been looking for this book forever, but it's always been too expensive for me to buy. But this copy was really cheap. It's a little worn down, but I'm fine with that. And that is Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi. This is a true crime novel about the Manson murders. So it goes into the life of Charles Manson. It goes into details about all the murders and about the followers. And I find this very fascinating. I've wanted to read this for so long. I know like the basics of the Manson murders, but I don't know a lot of details, and I'm excited because it just interests me so much. The next book I got is If You Ever Tell by Carleen Thompson. This is a mystery thriller novel about Teresa, who 8 years ago walked into the murder of her father and stepmother. She barely was able to save herself and her 8-year-old stepsister. And this serial killer came forward and claimed that he did it, even though everyone kind of suspected Teresa. And her 8-year-old stepsister just said she never remembered anything. But now her stepsister is starting to remember, and the serial killer has recanted, so now Teresa is desperately seeking answers. If you don't already know, I love this author. Besides her newest one that came out this year, this is the only book I haven't read of hers, so I'm really excited to add this to my collection. So the last 5 books I got from Barnes & Nobles when they were having their big blowout sale. And the first one is The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This is a young adult horror novel about Sophia Flores, who at the first day of school, she befriends Riley, Alexis, and Grace, and they convince Sophia that they want to help Brooklyn. And the way that they want to help her is by performing an exorcism on her, because they think that she is possessed. So I love exorcist demon type books, and this sounds interesting because it's about a group of friends. And I really thought the cover was neat because it's all pink and bright, but then they have a pentagram on the cover, and I thought that was pretty cool. The next book I got was Strange the Dreamer by Lonnie Taylor. This is a young adult fantasy novel about Laszlo Strange, who is an orphan and a junior librarian. And as far as he can remember, he has been obsessed with this mythical lost city Wheat. He has always wanted to go and search for it, but there was never an opportunity to do so. Until a hero called the God Slayer and some of his warriors presents itself, and he has to seize the chance to do it or lose his dream forever. I've heard great things about this book, and it sounds amazing. So when I saw it on sale, I grabbed it. The Amateurs by Sarah Shepard. This is a young adult mystery novel about Seneca, who is obsessed with true crime. And one day she was on a forum called Case Not Closed. She saw a message asking for help in the disappearance of her sister, Helena. And 5 years earlier, Helena has gone missing from her backyard and has never been heard from since. And so Seneca kind of wants to get to the bottom of this mystery. Sometimes I just want to read lighthearted, easy read mystery novels. I don't think this will be an amazing book, but I know I will be entertained, and sometimes that's all that matters. The next book is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a young adult fantasy novel. This is a retelling of Queen of Hearts. Catherine is the most desired girl in Wonderland. Even the King of Hearts wants her. But all she wants to do is open a bakery shop with her best friend. But her mom thinks that is not a good idea. And then Catherine meets this guy named Jest, and they enter a secret romance in fear of angering her mom and the King of Hearts. So I recently read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and I loved it, and this book just sounds so interesting. Plus I really like the author. I've read Cinder, and so I think I will probably like this too. The last book I got was My Plain Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodi Meadows. This is a young adult historical fiction fantasy novel, and it is a retelling of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is this governess at Thornhill, and her best friend, author Charlotte Bronte, and supernatural investigator Alexander Blackwood are drawn together on a ghost hunt. So I am not a huge fan of Jane Eyre. I've never read it, but I am not really interested in classical romance novels. I do plan on reading it one day, but I am not in a hurry. This, however, sounds very interesting. It mixes a classic and supernatural, and I really like supernatural books. So those are all the books I purchased. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye!